Yo, stories are hard to write, you know? And I think by far, the hardest part of a story to write is the ending. Like, when you really think about it, so many shows have f***ed up the ending. There are so many good shows that they get to the ending and they just fumble it. Like Game of Thrones. I ain't even seen Game of Thrones, but I done heard about that fucking ending. Or like The Walking Dead, how The Walking Dead starts falling off in the later seasons. I think early on in series is easier because there's so much room to operate. Nothing is set in stone, and there's endless possibilities for every single character and every single plot line. And to be honest, the consumer's own imagination plays into that, because we have all these thoughts in our mind of how things should or could go, and a lot of times reality just cannot match up to what you have in your imagination. So eventually, when you start to get to the ending sections of a story, it's hard for that story to connect everything and tie up all the loose ends in a way that's going to be satisfactory for everyone. You might start a series and early on you like the concepts in that series, but you might not like how they execute it or how they end off with those concepts. And that's why endings usually end up splitting up fan bases, because they have one side of the fan base that feels one way about certain things, and there's another side of the fan base that feels another way about certain things, and the fan bases start to split off after the ending because of their different visions that they had from the beginning of the series, especially in the Attack on Titan fandom. Because Jesus Christ, the way that fan base split into pieces after the ending, and I was a part of the Attack on Titan fandom. I saw that shit happen in real time, even though personally I liked the ending. And a lot of it revolved around the fact that different people had different views of what Eren was as a character and what his final motivations would be in the story. So when his final motivations do get revealed and who Eren is actually gets revealed, you see the side split of the people that like that version of Eren and the people that don't like that version of Eren. But I think this issue is even worse in action manga. And yeah, battle series have evolved over time and gotten way better, and they've been able to work their way around a lot of the issues that the medium had in the beginning. But one thing that I've never seen perfected, and I've really never seen any anime do in a way that I think won't cause problems, is that final war arc. Every battle series needs a final war arc. You have all this massive buildup and all the fans want to see their favorite characters all fight against each other in a giant battle royale, but it never goes right. Everyone wants it, everyone's waiting on it for the entirety of the series, everyone gets all hype about it, but it never goes right. And to be honest, I'm one of those people that thinks any concept can work in a series if it's done right. But for some reason, I can't see any way for the final war arc of a series to be done right and for the fans not to be left with a bad taste in their mouth. And there's a few different reasons for that I'm going to get into. And one of the main reasons I think it just doesn't work is there's so many characters to the point where that shit starts to scramble your brain. You start to lose track of what everyone's doing and everything that's going on, or even who some of the characters are. You'll be reading the manga and be like, who is this nigga again? This happened to me when I was reading the final arc of Tokyo Ghoul. There were so many characters involved in those fights that I had no idea who they were. I had to leave the manga, go to Google and start looking up shit like, who is this character? What did they do? Because it gets to a point where there are so many of these characters that you can't even remember them all on the first read through. And this causes another issue where, because there are so many characters, it's hard to give all of these characters spotlight, and every character can't get equal spotlight. So there ends up being fans of certain characters or certain groups or certain plot lines that feel completely shit on because the plot line that they were the most interested in barely got any attention because there were a million other things going on. Or then you have another problem, and this problem usually crops up in shorter series where, because the final war is coming up, they need a lot of characters, but they haven't introduced that many characters yet, so they just start introducing arbitrary characters that are just depth fodder to make shit feel like it matters. I kind of feel like this happened at the end of Soul Eater. There were so many new characters introduced right before they got to the moon. That's like, why would I give a fuck about any of these? I mean, they look cool, but why would I care about them? And again, these characters just end up being filler, taking away from the attention that main characters and already established characters could be getting. As a matter of fact, in Tokyo Ghoul, I literally did not remember the main villain. I had to go look up who this nigga was and all the shit that he was doing throughout the series, because I literally did not remember him, which I guess is kind of the point, but I don't like that shit. It's kind of like the Black Zetsu shit, where they have this character in the background not really doing much, and then they're like, actually, I'm the big villain. Yeah, that shit does not work either. All it does is undercut the real big villains and make them look incompetent as shit. But Tokyo Ghoul definitely did it better than Naruto, I'll say that much. Another issue that war arcs always run into is this causing of reader fatigue. Because there's so much turning of the tides, like, oh my god, this thing happened, the villains are on the ropes, actually the villains just did this, now the heroes are on the ropes, actually the heroes just did this, now the villains are back on the ropes. After a while, that shit doesn't hit anymore. It's like you no longer care because you know the story is just going through the motions until they they get to the climax. I remember this happening the most in the 4th grade Ninja War. After a while, I was completely mentally checked out because there were so many moments where they turned the tides that I just didn't give a fuck anymore. After they did the whole Shinobi Allied Force Jutsu, that shit, I felt my brain turn off at that exact moment. And that moment was cool. But once I realized, oh, this isn't the end. This isn't even close to the end. It's like it took all the motivation out of my body to keep watching. No, you know what really made me check out? When they were like, oh, we stopped the Edo Tensei. Now all the spirits are gonna go back to wherever the f they be going. And Madara's like, actually, I have a seal to stop that from happening.
Bro, really?
Get the f out of here. I just couldn't do it. After a while, I just didn't care. And One Piece,
Oh shit. Here we go again.
hasn't even had its final war arc yet, but I've already seen a little bit of this in Wano. The main thing I remember is the Ice Oni shit. That was clearly useless filler, but there are things like that you have to do in war arcs because this character isn't where they need to be yet, or this character has to be delayed so that they don't get here before this character gets here. And there's so much little ticky-tacky bullshit like that has to get done that it makes the arcs feel so bloated. It's like, I'm sorry, bro. After like 15 episodes, I don't care about this nigga Raizo fighting the nigga with the long earlobes, to the point where even when you get to the climax, it doesn't feel as good because it felt like we could have did this like 10 turning of the tides ago. It starts to become less of, oh my god, this hype moment is happening, to, oh my god, are you finally gonna beat this nigga? Are we finally gonna get out of here? And this only gets worse the longer the series is, because the longer the series is, the more characters they have to introduce and the more they have to turn the tide so that every character gets their shining moment, even though it's not gonna mean anything because they're gonna get their shining moment and then it's gonna get reversed in the next 2 chapters. But to me, that's not even the biggest issue with final war arcs. The biggest issue is with the villains themselves, because oftentimes by the time we get to the final war arc, the mangaka has done everything. He's written every kind of villain he could write. He's written every kind of power he could write, any kind of interesting cool fight he could write. He's done it all. He's got no more ideas for the final villain. So you know what he has to do? He just has to either give the final villain every single power, like every power that's been introduced in the story, just throw it to that nigga, or he has to make the nigga damn near immortal. And there's always a trend with villains like these because people always like them at first when they're flexing on niggas. When Madara is doing his shit, he throwing out 5 different clones of himself and all 5 of them got Susanoo and all 5 of them could beat Kage for some reason. That shit's hype at the beginning, right? But after a while, after this villain has shown so many powers and so many counters to everything that the heroes have, every time the heroes have something, it's like, oh wait, this could beat him. No, he has a counter for it. There becomes no way to take that villain out in a convincing way that's gonna satisfy the reader. Like in Bleach, when YourBudTevin shows up and we start learning about his powers and shit, it's like, how do we beat this nigga? We already got the Stern Ritter with all their crazy powers. How are we gonna beat the nigga that gives them the crazy powers and got an even crazier power himself? And you know what the answer is every time? Plot. It's plot. Even when YourBudTevin finally goes down, that shit was not satisfying. I'm not gonna lie. It literally felt like, that's it? This nigga was the all-powerful being and we just beat him with a big cut? And truth be told, there probably was no convincing way to take him out because Kubo just made him too strong. He was too perfect on every front. His stats was maxed out. And I feel like we're starting to run into that same problem in Jujutsu Kaisen with Sukuna. Because after this nigga beats Gojo, it's like, okay, you beat Gojo, we expected that. But not you beat Gojo and somehow you're still holding back. You haven't used all your powers yet. What? And all the main characters are damn near dead at this point. What are they supposed to do? It feels like no matter how Sukuna gets taken out, it's gonna feel like the main characters got lucky, or that shit was a Mickey Mouse win, or he just got plotted out of the win because they just made him too perfect. Gege dick ride this nigga too much. And to be honest, it feels like it's impossible to have final villains go down like that without making them look weak. Half of Sukuna's aura comes from the fact that he never loses. So once he loses, it's like, bruh. But to be honest with the whole Sukuna thing, it really comes down to whatever Yuji does. Because if Yuji does something that's hella impressive, it'll make sense for Sukuna to go down. But that's also the issue. That's my fear, is they're gonna have Yuji do something impressive and Sukuna's gonna counter it. And then we're gonna end up right back in the same problem again. Because for some reason, mangaka can never stop themselves. The villain always has to have some extra oomph. And I especially have that fear when it comes to Jujutsu Kaisen's track record. But I guess we'll see. But yeah, man, that's all I got for y'all boys today. Let me know your thoughts on final war arcs in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. I have a song, and this is for you. I know you like the video. Like the video. I know you liked it. You watched the whole thing.
This guy
Beginning. Alright, bro. Just like the video. Subscribe to the channel. And yeah, man, I'm gone. Damn.